Welcome classic rock fans to another episode of Beneath the Covers, and today I want to look at that iconic Stone sleeve, Sticky Fingers. Of course, Sticky Fingers was from 1971 and it's particularly famous for that or infamous I should say, for that zipper sleeve. Of course, that zipper sleeve conceptualization from Andy Warhol actually began in 1969 when Jagger wrote him a letter in his New York apartments or whatever, suggesting that he wants him to design a Stone sleeve that is going to be a resounding fuck off to the establishment. I mean, the Stones are already getting pretty pissed off with mismanagement, certainly mismanagement of the finances by Alan Klein, and and various drug busts and things like that. Of course, it's not long before they decamp in the south of France for the glorious exile on Main Street. But anyway, by '69, of course, the Stones had started to move away, I think, from living within the auspices or shadows of the Beatles to re-establish themselves as perhaps the greatest live touring band ever. But also, interestingly, voices that quite eloquently voiced an opposition to the counterculture. I mean, the counterculture was beginning to certainly be questioned in the USA, quite dramatically shifting away from the swirling formlessness of psychedelia and that kind of acid-induced utopia to a more earthy, more rootsy Americana. Of course, Stones had departed from the Decca label. I think one of the last things they recorded for the Decca label was the song Cocksucker Blues, or Young Man's Blues as it was known. It was a song that the Stones felt there's no way that, of course, Decca could ever release it. But obviously that was just to fulfill a contractual obligation. So they were looking for something different for this sleeve, their first album away from the Decca label. And as I said, they paid Andy Warhol $15,000 to design a sleeve for them. Jagger had initially requested something fairly simple to a certain extent, but Andy Warhol totally ignored this and went for something that was fairly complex in terms of actually a zipper sleeve. But it was a sleeve the audience could interact with. It wasn't just a picture, so to speak. And it's a wonderful sleeve in respects that I think it perfectly summarises, it perfectly epitomises, perhaps a better word, that lascivious strut that defined this band at this juncture in their career. And certainly Andy Warhol understood that as well. Of course, it was mistakenly thought that the crutch on the front cover was actually Mick Jagger, but that's certainly not the case. I think it was Rolling Stone magazine or one of the popular newspapers that deemed Mick Jagger the sexiest man in rock at this juncture. A point refuted by Truman Capote on the 1972 World Tour when he said Mick Jagger was about as sexy as a pissing toad. So it begins really with Andy Warhol photographing numerous male models from the waist down. There's been quite a lot of kerfuffle about who is the actual model on the sleeve, as so many photographs were taken. Joe D'Alessandro, I don't know if I pronounced that right, who was an actor who'd starred in several Warhol films, was thought to be, certainly he was photographed, but it's thought that he was perhaps the model on the front cover. Glenn O'Brien, of course, the editor of Warhol's Interview magazine. Now, Glenn O'Brien insists that he is actually the model in the underpants. He also goes on to say that he was a huge Rolling Stones fan. He got paid $100 for just 20 minutes work. It was certainly not bad in 1971. Other people who were photographed, of course, were, D'Alessandro's brother Bobby, Jackie Curtis, who was actually another one of Andy Warhol's superstars, so to speak. Not to mention Jed Johnson, who was Warhol's lover at the time. The actual shoot took place at 33 Union Square West, which I think is where Warhol's studios were located at the time. What is interesting, of course, Andy Warhol never actually revealed the model for this cover. In fact, O'Brien suggests that even Warhol didn't know who it was. Certainly one of the most prominent contenders for the front cover was Corey Tippin, who was a makeup artist, and he was part of that whole Warhol scene. Even O'Brien suggests that he feels that he's the favourite for being the model on the front cover, the jeans model. Quote, "I knew Warhol wanted to be kind of an erotic photograph. Andy wanted a bulgy crutch," Tippin says. "To me, it had nothing to do with rock and roll. Those of us in the gay world related to it as a gay, iconic image." Tippin, like all the rest, was never actually told the identity of the model on the front, but Tippin is adamant it is him because he recognises his own anatomy. The cover received some odd tweaks internationally. For example, in Russia, an image of a Soviet army belt buckle was added to the jeans. In Spain, the jeans photo was replaced by a picture of women's fingers emerging from a can of blood. Of course, General Franco's Spain did not like this image at all. One thing I like about it is the fact that it's black and white and it's grainy. It adds a dangerous, almost salacious air to the whole affair. The Stones were certainly hammering home that image of them as anti-establishment bad boys, which was juxtaposed, of course, with the more wholesome image of the Fab Four. As at this point, of course, the Stones start using their famous tongue and lips logo designed by Joe Pesci. The design was based on the Hindu goddess Kali. But it's an interesting point as to what this means. It's at this juncture the band become branded. Other information, of course, Peter Webb shot the famous photograph of the band all together. He wanted them dressed in Victorian clothes, but instead they just look like a lot of urchins. It's called the yawn photograph because there's that because Jagger's there yopping away, isn't he? And of course there's that famous shot of the band trouserless holding the album cover. This of course was by David Montgomery. Interestingly, I mean, if you look at this album cover, this is the deluxe edition of this album. It really, I can't remember how much I paid for it, but it's quite pricey. But it's a really nice item. I've heard nothing but bad reviews of the latest Goat's Head Soup deluxe edition in terms of its design and the fact that it's dreadfully overpriced. This, of course, is nice because you get loads of extras with it, of course, which I'm not going to open them up now. I think there is an unboxing video on my YouTube channel. But it comes in this, you get this lovely book, and the zipper's actually, where is it, designed like the Stones tongue label, which is great. But this is a lovely item which I really glad I purchased. One thing I am hoping for is in 2022 that we get a really nice deluxe edition of Exile on Main Street, so we remortgage our houses and purchase that. Anyway, I'd like to take this moment to thank you for your continued patronage and support, and wish you all well, stay safe, and as I usually say, do keep listening.